In the last video, we talked about taking percentages and changing them into fractions. And I wanted to break these two things up into two videos because, first of all, I didn't want a 20-minute video, and I'm sure you don't want a 20-minute video. And plus, I wanted to make sure that I was pretty thorough and detailed with how to do each. So the last one was all about turning percents into fractions. This video is all about taking percentages and making them into decimals. Okay? Now, the reason why I did this one second is because you need to know how to change them into fractions in some instances to be able to change the percentages into decimals, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. Okay? So what I did is I took the same examples from the last video and we got them to where we had changed them into fractions and show you how we use that to change them into decimals. And then also I'm going to give you a little shortcut that will help you a little bit in changing percentages into decimals. But I want to show you the process first because it's important for you to know the process of how to do it instead of the shortcut. So in case you're ever asked, okay, well, that's all well and good, you got this answer, but how do you go through the process? Okay, and sometimes they won't accept the shortcut. So, but I want you to know both to make your life a little easier. Okay, so let's get to it. So our first example was 15%, and to change it into a fraction, we went ahead and did that, and we're at that point. Okay, if you don't remember how to do that, or you skipped ahead to this video and didn't watch the other video, I suggest you go back and watch the other video to find out how we got to this point because it's very important. All right, so now we've got 15% into a fraction. We've got it, excuse me, simplified, and here's the process. Now, you don't have to simplify it to get to this process, but if you do simplify it, it makes your life easier. And a lot of times they will ask you to write a percentage as not only a fraction, but also as a decimal. So if you've already done this, and that's part of what you have to do for the answer, then you're good, okay? But you don't have to simplify it, but it does help. All right, so what you do is you do a little division, and this is the same thing as when you took fractions earlier in the year and made them into decimals. If you know that process, it's going to be easy for you. Okay? So you take the numerator and you divide it by the denominator. Remember, if you say 3 divided by 20, that means whatever you're dividing by goes on the outside. I know some sixth graders have problems setting that up when they say it. Okay? Sometimes they'll know that they have to divide 3 by 20, and they'll say it the opposite way. Okay, so just be careful. So to help you out, the numerator, the top number of the fraction, goes on the inside, no matter what the number. Then the denominator goes on the outside. So you're basically dividing the numerator by the denominator. Now, once we get to this division problem, we know that 20 will not go evenly into 3. So to fix that, we have to add a decimal. So we add 1 after the 3, and then also we bring it up. Okay, so we know 20 does not go into 3. We put our 0 before the decimal. And then after we put these decimals here, we put a 0 after that decimal. Now we know that we've got something we can work with, because 20 will go into 30 one time. Okay, we've got 10 left over. And most of the time as sixth graders, we do not want remainders. Okay, there are some exceptions, but this is not one of them. So we keep going. We add a 0, bring it down. How many times will 20 go into 100? Of course, 5 times. Okay, 5 times 20 is 100. We do not have a remainder. Okay, so this is 15% as a decimal. Okay, now if you look at this and you look at the percentage where we started, they look very similar. There's a reason for that. I'll come back to that in just a second. Let's move to this one. Now, we talked about how percentages are based on 100. Okay? So, what we do is we know that this is 113%. So that's more than 100%. We've got one whole because a 100 out of 100 means that you've got one whole. It's kind of like if you have a test or a worksheet. And if you get all of them right, you get 100%. That means you got every single one of them right. Well, let's say that you had a test that you had a bonus question, whether in science or something like that. And you got all the answers right on the test, and then you got the bonus question right, and say that bonus question was worth 5 points, your grade would be 105%. Okay, so you got more than all of them right, basically. All than more that were required for you to get a grade. Okay, so it's kind of like this. Now, we talked about in the last video of how this is an improper fraction. We want to get it into a mixed number. Now, the reason why I have two arrows here is because if you're changing this to a decimal, once you get to this step, you don't have to make it into a mixed number. You don't have to. Okay? You can. It may make your life a little easier, but you don't have to. Okay? I'm going to show you both ways, and you can decide which one you want to do. So, seeing that this is a fraction, we do the same thing as we did with this one. Okay? We take the numerator, which is the top number, and divide it by the denominator, the bottom number. Okay? With me so far? And we go ahead and divide. Now we know in this one, 100 will go into 113 one time. So we do our subtraction in our problem. We've got 13 left over. But remember, we cannot have a remainder. So we have to add our decimal up at the top, and then after the 113, and then add a 0 after the 113. Okay? Bring our 0 down, and then see how many times 100 will go into 130, which it will go in one more time. Okay? Do our subtraction. We have 30 left over. Still have to keep going because we still have a remainder. So we add a 0 up here, bring it down. How many times will 100 go into 300? Well, of course, 3 times. Okay? So then this is our decimal. 1 and 13 hundredths. Okay? Now, remember, the reason why we have that whole number there is because we had more than 100. And if we have 100 or more, that means that we have one whole. Okay? This way. This way you can do it, same thing. Since we already have it as a mixed number and we have a whole number in front, we know that our answer is going to be 1 point something, just because we know that we've got that whole number there. Okay? So then what we do is kind of the same thing, is we put our numerator and divide it by the denominator. 100 will not go into 13, so we have to add our decimals and our 0. And how many times will 100 go into 130? Well, once. Put 30 left over, add our 0 and keep going. 100 will go into 300 3 times. Okay, that is our this part. We add this to this, and we got the same answer. Okay, all right. Then on to the next one. We've got 0.5%. So we went ahead and taken care of our fractions. Okay, we've got it this way, and we've got it the simplified way. I can show you both. Okay, this will be easier, but I'll do both ways so you can choose. You're the one that's getting the grade and doing the work, so you might as well be the one to choose. All right, so we do the same thing. We take the numerator and divide it by 100. Okay? We want to make sure that we take our decimal, put it up there. 100 will not go into 0. 100 will not go into 5. So we have to add our zeros. 100 will not go into 50, but 100 will go into 500 5 times. Okay? So then there's that. If we do it this way, same process. Numerator go divided by the denominator. 1,000 will not go into 5. We add our decimal, a 0, add our decimal up here. Will not go into 50. Add another 0, will not go into 500. We add another 0, will go into 5,000 5 times. Okay? We got the same answer, just 2 different ways to do it. Now, if we look at all of these, here is the shortcut. Okay? Now, when you are changing a percentage into a decimal, what you do, this is the shortcut. Now you still need to know how to do this way, because the shortcut won't bail you out every time, is that you take the percentage. Okay? I'm going to go up here. And you get rid of the percentage sign. Okay? To where it's just 15. Now technically, there is an imaginary decimal right here. Okay? We're going to move this decimal over 2 places. And guess what that gives us? The same as what we had down here. Okay? So when you're dealing with percentages into decimals, there's a shortcut. I'll give you another one. Let's try this one. So we're going to bring this one up here, get rid of the percentage. Remember, there's an imaginary decimal there. We're going to move it 2 places. We always move it 2 places. We move it 2 places. That gives us 1 13/100ths, which is the same as what we got down here. Easy, huh? Let's look at this one. Move this one up. Get rid of that. Okay. Move our decimal over 2 places. 1, 2, and we always move it to the left. And that gives us 0.005, which is the same as what we got down there. Pretty cool, huh? All right, hopefully that helps.